If you ask me, like, how many years were you lost, capital L lost, in terms of what you were really going to be happy doing professionally, I would say 10. Like, age 22 to 32, I was lost.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Context Window. Today's conversation is with Angela Duckworth. Angela is a psychology professor at Penn. She's a total legend in the research game. A MacArthur Genius Award winner, author of the famed book, Grit. If you're in the education field, you know Angela's work. She graduated from Harvard in 1992, won the Fay Prize for Best Senior Thesis. She was on the fast track to success at a very young age. You look at her resume and you think, this woman checked all the boxes and knew everything she was going to do right from the beginning. But as you'll hear, it's really not true. She spent, in her words, 10 years feeling capital L lost and unhappy, trying out different careers. When she finally landed in her PhD program, she basically told her husband, don't let me quit again. And thank goodness she didn't, because she has a lot to say about the success and happiness and heartache she's had along her journey. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. I'm eager to hear your feedback. You can email me at david@thecontextwindow.com. Enjoy the show. Angela, thank you for being here.
David, I'm so excited to be here. I miss Harvard.
Yeah, Harvard misses you too.
All of Harvard misses me.
So speaking of Harvard, Angela,
Yeah.
you came to Harvard as an undergraduate.
I did.
From Cherry Hill, New Jersey.
I did.
Yes, your dad was a chemist at DuPont.
Correct.
Yeah, and you've spoken at times about how he had very high expectations.
He had the highest
Yes.
expectations.
Yes.
Including going to Harvard.
Yes.
That was one of his expectations.
Yes, so I was going to ask you, did that prepare you for Harvard?
You know, my dad was so cheap that he wouldn't let me visit any schools before I got in. He was like, why would you want to visit schools before you get in? Like, if you don't get in, that was a wasted trip. So after I got my admissions letter to Harvard and, you know, others, my dad said, okay, now you can visit 2 schools.
Did he tell you which two you had to visit?
Yeah, Yale and Harvard.
Really?
And by the way, it was cheap because you go to Yale and then you can keep going,
Yes.
right? Because, you know, from South Jersey to Yale and then you just get back on the
Yeah.
train. So, yeah, my dad was very excited for me to go to Harvard. And he was influential in that ultimate decision.
Some students have talked about Harvard as being a very high-pressure, competitive environment. Do you think your childhood either prepared you or didn't prepare you for that? And did you experience that when you were here?
I think Harvard is different than when I
Okay.
went. So I graduated in 92.
Yes.
I think we have calculated that you are like a good decade younger than me, David, right?
If you say so.
Okay, there you go. I say so. And back when I went here,
Yeah.
late 80s, right, graduating in 1992, I will say what it was like. And then, of course,
Yeah.
you can tell me whether
Yeah.
it's still like that. But it was very like Darwinian survival of the fittest. And
Okay.
I think some of these practices remain in place, but like my first experience of Harvard, I applied to do public service.
Yeah.
So there are these, of course, like I think still, you know, pre-freshman week
Yes.
programs.
Yeah, pre-orientation programs.
Freshman outdoor program. I wanted to do the freshman urban program. Do you know
Yes.
if that exists?
It
by
still
the way?
exists. Yes, it does. Yeah.
So then I had to apply for it. I was like, oh, you apply to volunteer to like
Yeah.
paint houses in an impoverished area in Boston. Okay. I wrote an essay about why I believed that I was capable of doing manual labor for a week and why it was so important to me. And so my first experience of Harvard is being rejected. And I continued to feel like, wow, what is this like comping like, what does
Yeah.
it mean to compete for everything and to
Yes.
be rejected all the time? So I had that experience extracurricularly. And then I was a bio concentrator,
Yeah.
I guess I should say.
Neurobiology?
I was neurobio,
Okay.
which was effectively being bio back then. It was like
Okay.
you could hardly, you know, there wasn't a lot of daylight between neurobio and bio. So I'm in these like huge pre-med classes.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was not a relaxed vibe. You know, I'm sure it was partly me, but did my father's parenting style prepare me? I mean, my dad, who's now passed, was brutally honest. And so
Yeah.
he would often tell me, like, you're no genius.
Yeah.
And
Of course, he was later proven wrong.
of course, later I did say, oh, by the way, like, technically, just, yeah.
Because you won the
was-
MacArthur Genius Award. Just-
There was, yeah.
you don't want to say it out loud, but I'll
was-
say it. Yeah.
I went to school in Boston. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was able to tell my dad, like, it was kind of funny at that point.
Funny to whom? To him or
I
to
think
you
to
or to both?
me, I
Okay.
thought it was funny. I think he may have been amused. He was getting on in his years by then. But yeah, Harvard was hard. I think Harvard may have changed, though, culturally. I wonder, do you think that's true?
It's a good question. So I do think it's changed in some ways and in other ways not. So I think we still attract
highly competitive students from all around the world. And so the comping process that you mentioned, where students apply for extracurriculars and often to student clubs. So it's kind of student on student crime, if you like. It's like they are recreating elements of the admissions process.
Yeah,
that are
Lord of the
familiar to
Flies.
Yeah.
Right here.
And so that still exists.
Yeah.
I do think we've done more to create a culture where students feel like they don't have to only do that. So we've got, and there's survey data at Harvard to suggest that students feel a greater sense of belonging than they did in the past and things like that. So I do think we've.
There you go. So it has changed.
Yeah. So I think we've tried on the university side and the administrative side to create a bunch of different ways that students can distinguish themselves and build community.
And look, I am not the person who thinks like everybody should have a trophy and like, oh my gosh, consequences, and look, we live in a world where there are scarce resources and there are a limited number of spots. And so I get it. It's just, okay, let me share, candidly, like another more recent Harvard experience. So I had my 25th reunion almost 10 years ago. I remember getting the material, like, it's your 25th reunion. It's going to be amazing to see your former classmates. You can apply. I was like, I am going to laugh out loud. You can apply to be featured as like the fill in the blank, like most prominent member of the class of 1992. And I think I may have read this letter out loud at the dinner table. I'm like, so Harvard.
And then you set it on fire?
It was just, I should have, right? But I thought it was just, humorous. I do think it is part of Harvard culture for better or for worse. And,
sometimes better, sometimes worse.
Sometimes better,
and I think you're right. We can be more conscientious about that. And
like, do we really need like the most prominent person in the class of 1992 who has to apply and beat out all of her,
But Angela, having said all that,
I didn't apply, by the way, but I wouldn't have won. Because the person who won, who should win in my class, aside from Supreme Court justices, which
this is not something I choose, just so you know. But I'm interested in your feedback.
Yeah, the person who wrote Bridgerton.
Okay.
Do you know what Bridgerton is?
I mean, I know what it is, but I've never watched it. So.
It's so good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You should start with season 1 and then watch Queen Charlotte. But anyway, I mean, she should win.
Okay. But so, Angela, you, on the one hand, deplore the competitiveness of Harvard and the environment. But on the other hand, you succeeded in that competition. You won the Radcliffe Fay Prize, given to the top undergraduate thesis. What was your thesis about?
I mean, I think, and you are more knowledgeable than I am, I thought it was a more kind of like holistic sort of like, hey, good on you, like, great job. Because when I was an undergraduate, it is true that I did research, and I did it on Alzheimer's disease. You will note that I am not a world leader in Alzheimer's research, but at the time when I was a Harvard undergraduate, I would like go across the river to the medical school, and I was studying these little protein malformations that it turned out, drum roll please, had nothing to do with Alzheimer's disease. I was like, maybe spectrin isoforms have to do with, no. Okay, so that's part of science, right? Like null findings.
Yes.
So it's true that I did that. But David, when I was here, my most meaningful times were not in the research lab, not in the lecture hall.
Yeah.
They were in Cambridge. So what I spent literally more hours doing than the collective time in the lab or in the lecture hall was basically being in Cambridge public schools.
Yeah.
So I was like a big sister, and then I was a tutor.
You did this with the Phillips Brooks House?
I did it for the Rival. I did it for HAND.
Okay.
Which I think still exists, right? The Harvard HAND program, right?
Yeah.
Like the houses each matched to one of the conveniently 13 neighborhoods, 13 houses. So that is what I spent all of my time doing. I was like hardly at Harvard. I was like always in.
And you wrote
East
a prize-winning thesis in your spare time?
I wrote a thesis on null findings, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I also will say that I didn't sleep a lot. So I found my, I guess it's possible to ask for your admissions like file, right? Like there's like.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, you should.
Okay.
Wait, you didn't do it?
No.
You should 100% do it.
Okay.
Like,
you mean for you?
You
like
can
ask
do
for
it
your
for,
file?
well, you probably could because you're in a position of power and authority, but
ask for your
any
own file.
Harvard alum can ask for their admissions file.
Okay.
I hope this doesn't inundate Harvard admissions because they do create all this friction. They're like, now click here, now wait for your email, now click here. So they're using a lot of speed bumps. But if you are persistent, if you are gritty, you can get all the way to the end and you can get emailed a PDF of your own application, which of course most people have, right? But I didn't.
But not like the ratings of it or anything.
Exactly. And there's these like little scrawling, so I got to see what my guidance counselor thought of me, which was, not much. So I saw my admissions file.
It can't possibly be true.
I think she was like, she's okay. I mean, really, it was not. These are not top. I was like, how did I get in here? My guidance counselor was like, meh. Maybe not meh. Maybe not mid.
Okay.
But like somewhere like above that and under extraordinary. But I read my essay.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so interesting. So my essay to get into this place was about how I hardly slept. The guy thought it was very clever because I was like, it's kind of like living longer because like when you're asleep,
Yeah.
you're dead.
Yeah.
But it's true that when I was at Harvard, I did sleep a lot. So I did do research and I did a lot of public service. I
So
didn't
you-
do a lot of sleeping.
So you were pre-med when you came to Harvard.
I was pre-med.
Yeah.
My father.
Yes. So your
We
father.
already talked
so
about my father.
okay. So your
yes.
father was a chemist. Kid go to Harvard, wins the thesis prize, neurobiology, wants to go pre-med. It was all laid out for
It was
you.
like
What
happening just like he wanted.
And then what happened?
So all that time that I was spending,
Yeah.
and I'm not a saint, but I really like kids. And I think I discovered that while I was at Harvard.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, like kids are great. And when my father found out that instead of going to medical school, I was going to stay in Cambridge, Massachusetts and open a summer school
Yeah.
for
Summerbridge, right?
Summerbridge.
Yes.
Summerbridge.
Yeah.
You were like,
I did
this
my
is
homework.
like, you're a stalker or something. I'm like, oh my God.
Friendly,
David
a friendly.
Deming knows, in
the
a
friendliest
positive
possible
way.
version of
In the
that,
best
yes.
possible way.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm not going to medical school. I didn't take the MCAT. I am going to stay in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm going to open a summer school for, kids from low-income families so that they can,
Yeah.
have academic enrichment.
Yeah.
My father literally stopped speaking to me for 6 months. I mean, when he started speaking to me again, he was like, why do you want to help poor kids? And I was like, well, that's interesting language, Dad. But like, how about kids?
Uh-huh.
Like, how about kids? So
So he thought this was your
he was
rebellious
not
period.
happy. He was, yes, and I was rebellious, I think. I was like, I mean, my dad was a little overbearing, but like every time he said something, I was like, that's not true.
But you didn't, Angela, you did more than just go help kids. I mean, you started a program called Summerbridge.
By the way, it still exists.
Yes, I know. I was going to ask you
It's
about that.
so
It still
great.
exists. It's now
So
Breakthrough
great.
Boston, Greater
Yes,
Boston.
rebranded.
Okay, so many years later now, it still
Many
exists.
years later, more than 30. Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that. That was quite entrepreneurial. You didn't just go teach. Like you started a program that still exists today. You raised money for it, right?
Okay, so
You-
so that it doesn't sound like everything was great. Let me just give you the let me spill the tea, as the
Okay.
kids say, right? Like
Okay. spill the
when
tea.
I was at Harvard, I was very unhappy, right? I was very accomplished. I was very energetic.
Yeah.
But I really have to say, like, I wasn't happy.
Mm.
And I do think I found a lot of gratification in doing these things. But I just want to say, in terms of like, wow, then you did this and then you won that. Or like, I was lonely a lot. Like when you do all these things and
Yeah.
you're not hanging out with your roommates or you're not just like goofing off and spending time. Okay, so I just want young people to take the lesson, maybe that, winning the
Yeah.
highest prize. And
Well, you're saying you were accomplishing all the things that you thought you should, but you were not feeling fulfilled by that.
I mean, I feel like when you are 18, 19, 20, 21, 20, you want to be doing all the things that you want to do.
Yeah.
And you're like at the beginning of your life, right?
Mhm.
And I think one of the things I bungled was that there's something else you want when you're 18, 19, 20. Like you want a best friend.
Yeah.
Like you want friendships that will last a lifetime. You
Yeah.
want to fall in love. Like you want, and I think that I mean, I do have friends, right?
Yeah.
Who
You fix that
went to-
eventually.
I mean,
Yeah.
but I look back on those years and I think like, yeah, I'm really happy what I accomplished, and I'm really happy that Breakthrough, like lasted, and I'm very I guess I'll say proud. I'm like,
Yeah.
awesome. Like that nonprofit still exists.
Yeah, you
Like
should be proud.
kids should have summer school. Like,
Yeah.
hello? Like, but I also, having had a daughter who went here, Amanda, more recently, I saw her spend time in ways that I didn't, right? It's like you don't put on your resume
Yeah.
that when your roommate is crying and you have an exam the next day and you just talk to your roommate all
Yeah.
night. And I would never have done that when I was an undergraduate. I think that was a mistake, right? Like when I came back to Reunion, I saw reunion is something I feel like undergraduates should just like go and go work the reunion because you can see the future. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You're like, oh, that's me in 25 years. And what I saw when I came back to my 25th reunion was these tables of people who were like really good friends, and there was a bond there. And yes, I have a few friends who went to Harvard in the class of 92.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm going to see them this summer, so I wasn't like completely friendless. I have a lot of ex-boyfriends, I'll tell you that. I was like, wow, I dated you too? I was like, what?
Did-
I was like, who are you?
Did you reveal to them that you didn't remember that? You're like,
Oh,
wait,
totally.
I dated you? That's
I was
a little...
like, wait, what is your names. Like, do you not remember? I was
Okay.
like, no memory. So it's not that I had no relationships, but I think I learned this in some ways. First of all, too late, because like
Yeah.
when you graduate, and you're
Yeah.
like, you don't get to go. There's no do over. I learned it in part because I'm a college professor now, so I teach at Wharton and at Penn, and I say to my students, like, I know you're under a lot of pressure in so many ways that I cannot appreciate. And I know you don't have enough time. You really, literally don't have enough time. But if there's one mistake that I made that I hope you don't make, it's that you will prioritize all of these things that feel like the most important thing in the world and more important than, like spending a kind of useless 6 hours with your roommate or, like goofing off. I just feel like I was a little bit blind, I guess, to like the really important things in life.
When you give that advice, do you think they listen?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I hope so. I do say to them, I was like, I want you to imagine your reunion.
Yeah.
I'm like, one of the best things about the reunion, everybody, that insecurity, that comping, that sort of like, am I good enough? Like, you know what? Actually, it was incredibly relaxed. I don't know how you feel about like going to reunions, but like, I feel like people had grown up and like, you know what? I don't care what you won. And guess what? You don't care what I won.
Yeah.
Like, let's just talk about whatever, menopause, like just like it was so much more real.
Did you give this advice to Amanda when she came to Harvard? And did she listen? Did she listen?
I did. I think that she probably had that instinct before her mother was like, don't get like super sucked into like a race, at every moment, right? There are 168 hours in the week. Don't make all 168 of them a race to get ahead. And I have to say, the most, gratifying thing to me about watching her, graduate was that, she clearly had these friendships and she had invested in them. And they don't go on her resume, but they're more important than her resume.
Yeah. I want to talk about your journey to becoming a professor. Okay, so you started Summerbridge.
Yes.
And you ran it for 2 years.
Yep.
And then
at which time my father started speaking to me again.
Yeah, that's right. So
the
relationship was back on track for now. And then I presume he was happy because you went to Oxford on a Marshall scholarship.
He was so happy. He was like, thank God.
Yeah.
He's like, she's at least a Marshall.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you came back and you went to go work at McKinsey, right?
Yes.
So you went back to the well-trodden Harvard grad student path of like, I'm going to go work at a management consulting firm after getting a Marshall scholarship. So he's very happy.
Yes.
And so that's another opportunity you had to get on track.
Yeah.
But you jumped off the track.
It didn't quite, get back onto the pre-med track, right?
How long did you work at
on
McKinsey?
a prestige track. Well, I'll say, thinking that, maybe listening to this conversation are, some young people who are like, I would love a Rhodes, I would love a Marshall. And I think those are wonderful things to have. But I will also say that when you go to these, wonderful opportunities, I think sometimes it's like a great fairy tale in theory. But one of the things that happens when you're at Oxford is there is this kind of like stasis. It's sort of like you're removed from reality for 2 years and you're in this place that looks like it came out of a Disney movie and you're hanging out, but maybe not necessarily like figuring out what you want to do. When I was at the end of my time at Oxford, and by the way, I got in on this fellowship under the pretense, sincere at the time, that I was going to like go to Oxford and then come back to the United States and eventually become the U.S. Secretary of Education.
Okay.
I was like, there was a blank. It was like, what is your career? And I was like, U.S. Secretary of Education. I now recognize, by the way, I know you're an expert in public policy. Like, there are few people who would be worse at the job of being the U.S. Secretary of Education.
Oh, I don't agree with that. No.
Well, actually, you could have thoughts about. Yeah, so I might be an okay job, but I can name 1,000 people who would be better than me.
I mean, that's going to be true of lots of jobs, right?
Maybe. I know so little about politics, David. I'm like hopeless. I'm like, who?
The standard is not would you be the best at the job. The standard is would you do a good job in it relative to who else would do it.
Oh, relative to who else
relative
would
to
do
who else would do it. That's the key.
No, yeah, but relative to who else would do it, I would do a worse job than other people who are willing
I
to
don't
do
agree.
it.
But anyway,
Okay.
Continue.
All
Okay.
right.
So
anyway, I went to McKinsey because I, in that 2 years, I don't want to say got lost, but I was like, oh, okay, now I think I want to do stuff in education. I do think at Oxford I probably figured out maybe taking political science classes that I was just like, oh, wait, I should definitely not be in any position of authority in government because, you go to Oxford, you do politics, philosophy, and economics is like ordering a Big Mac at McDonald's. It's like you go to Oxford, you order that because that's a very
That's what you're
famous
supposed
program.
to do, yeah.
And it was so hard for me. I was like, oh my God, this is so much harder than organic chemistry and physics and math. So I just switched into neuroscience, and it was like to be easy. I was like, no, switch into neuroscience. So my eventual degree from Oxford was in master's in neuroscience. I went to McKinsey because I missed the school year. So I was like, I do want to do education, but maybe
So you
not
knew even then
policy.
you wanted to teach.
I feel like if you want to do anything in education, it's like,
Yeah.
how could you not be in education? So I knew I wanted to teach, even if I didn't think I was going to be a classroom teacher forever. But you graduated from that program in like October, which is just too late.
So wait, so
that's why I went to
when
McKinsey.
you took the Marshall Scholarship
Yes.
and went to Oxford, did you know you wanted to teach after that? Or did you discover that when you were there?
I think that when I was that tender age of sort of like young 20s, figuring things out, I think I probably had the sense that I needed time to figure things out. I think that is one of the reasons why people apply for such things. They're
Yes.
like, I'll figure it out in beautiful Oxford. And I did sort of figure out, like, I figured out not to become the Secretary of Education. I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like, oh, I don't think I should be a policy person. I think I should not get a PhD in public policy. But I was still lost. You know, really, David, if you ask me, like, how many years were you lost, capital L lost, in terms of what you were really going to be happy doing professionally? I would say 10. Like age 22 to 32, I was lost. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, maybe I'll go to McKinsey. It's like, oh, no, now I can be a teacher. Like, oh, I don't want to be a teacher. Like, well, now I can help run this nonprofit. Like, okay, I don't want to run a profit. Like, well, maybe I'll go back to teaching. Like, I was very lost for, 10 years.
So that's interesting you say that, Angela. So when I look, you could tell me if this is totally wrong. When I
Because
look
you went more straight through, I think.
No, not really. But
No?
yeah, but this is not about me. This is about you. So,
Okay.
so you took
Much
10,
better talk about you.
10 years between your bachelor's degree and when you started
Starting
your
my
PhD.
PhD,
Right.
yeah.
So that 10 years is the period you're talking about.
Yeah.
So when I look at what you did, you started this
Summer enrichment
program. Summer enrichment
Yes.
program. Yes.
Academic enrichment
Yeah,
program. It's
enrichment
called
program,
that.
right? And you've said a lot. You were very proud of that. And then you went to do the Marshall, and then you worked at McKinsey, and then went to go teach, and then you became the COO of GreatSchools.net, and then you went to teach again.
Briefly a chief
Yeah.
operating officer for a nonprofit.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then you went to get your PhD. So when I look at that, what I see is somebody who knows what kind of impact they want to have, but is searching for a way to apply the skills that they learned to it in the right way. That's what I see. You tell me if that's
Sure, yes. And, when I am with undergraduates, I am like, I feel so much sympathy for you. And honestly, I feel empathy for you. And as a psychologist, I will say sympathy is like, oh, I feel bad for you.
Yeah.
And like empathy is like, I feel the feeling that you
Yes.
have.
Yeah, yeah.
And I empathize with them because I know what it's like to not know what you're going to do with your life and to be sort of panicking that, with every moment, like, more time that you are never going to have back again
Yeah.
is gone. And so I know it sounds coherent, and I'm not saying that I didn't do worthwhile things in that decade or that I didn't learn but like, I cried so much, David. Like, okay, so when my husband and I got married, so at Oxford, the best thing that happened to me was I met my husband, Jason.
Yeah.
And that was really, like, by far the best thing. I also learned how to cook. That was the second best thing, and that's a distant second. But I got married. Jason and I met there, and we, soon after got married. And we got this couch from my parents. It was like the world's ugliest couch, but sometimes really ugly couches are like, anyway, it was a very comfortable, ugly couch.
Okay.
And it had these like blue and cream pillows, and I would sit on the couch and I'd grab a pillow, and I cried so many. I mean, I don't know. Did I cry more?
Why were you crying?
I mean, maybe you were different. I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, and I wasn't unemployed, but I found that to be really hard. And I bet there are a lot of Harvard students who feel like that because the goal of getting into Harvard, like you said, you won, right?
Yeah.
So you feel this like euphoria for 10 minutes, and then you're here, and then you have another goal, which is winning it.
Yes.
And I felt like not having a direction was so terrible, and I really suffered.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And maybe, again, I'm just telling the story in retrespect. And we all tell
I know,
these stories.
but the thing, in retrospect, everything sounds great.
But you tell me this is wrong. But what I see in it is you actually, in some ways, knew your direction, which is you wanted to empower young people to be successful. And you were trying to find the right way
And I was
to
trying to
do
find
that.
the how.
Yeah,
right?
and so you were trying to find the path. You
That's
weren't
true. Maybe if you had been there and you're like, hey, I know you're crying and like, I just want to tell you, you know the why, you just don't know the how. Like, maybe I would have felt better. But at the time, I was like, should I get an MBA? I don't know. What's an MBA? Like, maybe I should be the director of human resources. Like, I don't know. What's human resources? Like, I like kids. Maybe I should be a pediatrician. Ugh, I didn't take the MCAT. Like, maybe I should be a principal. I don't know. I don't really like leadership. It was really, really not fun.
But you found yourself at Penn getting your PhD in psychology.
I did. When I was 32, I was like, I think I should try this.
Do you think you found the right path?
I do. And I want to say this. When I more or less wrote down on a piece of paper, I was like, okay, all right, what am I good at, right? What do I like? What do I dislike? What am I bad at, right? I was like, okay, what do I like? I was like, I do like the study of motivation. When I was 16, remember I said I applied to Yale and Harvard. I personally wanted to go to Yale. And the reason is that I went to summer school there when I was 16 years old. And I had not only an overbearing father who was obsessed with achievement, I had like the cheapest father. So my dad was like, you can't do any extracurricular activities, including summer activities, until you can pay for it yourself. And I was like,
oh, wow.
I'm sorry, I have no money. He was like, well, you should start working. So I babysat, I walked. Did I walk dog? I worked at a photocopying store. Like, I like nickel and dime, saved enough money. I could pay for the 5-week program, not the 8-week program, the 5-week program at Yale Summer School. And because it was my money, when the course catalog came, I can tell you what it looked like. It was beige. It had a watercolor of like some Gothic building from Yale on the cover. And I ran my index finger down all the entries and I picked psychology. I was like, I want to take psychology. So, of course, in retrospect, it's like, oh, you're interested in human behavior. But now fast forward to 32, I was like, okay, I'm interested in human behavior and motivation. I'm actually pretty good at like math and analytic stuff. I love kids, but I don't want to be a teacher. I'm not good at. I'm really not good at leading people. I don't like conflict. And I was like, oh, maybe I should get a PhD in psychology. That's how I came to that decision. But talk about like keeping it real and uncertainty. I said to my husband, Jason, and he will verify this. I said, it's been 10 years and they've been hard. He's like, he's like, lots of tears. And I'm like, yeah. I said, don't let me quit for 10 years. I was like, I just want to keep going in this direction for 10. Like, if I am in psychology in 10 years and I want to quit, so I'll be 42. I was like, but don't let me quit for 10 years because I know I'm going to be like, oh, this isn't the right fit. And so when I was 42, Jason said, you know what day it is? I'm like, no. And he was like, it's 10 years.
He remembered.
He was like, do you want to quit? And I was like, no, I'm good. So I do think it was a good decision, but I really empathize with doubt.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because you got started your PhD in 2002. You studied under Martin Seligman, who's the sort of famous founder of positive psychology. And you are very well known, I'm going to say. You are famous for the study of grit. Okay, and grit, as you've defined it, others have defined it now, is perseverance and passion toward long-term goals.
Yes.
Okay.
Good job.
Thank you.
By the way, people usually screw that up. They're like, and grit is, and then I'm like, well, it's not really, but keep going.
So when in your dissertation research, you designed a grit scale, and you administered it to a bunch of different populations. So this is like ranging from West Point cadets to spelling bee participants to undergraduates, and you found that basically, even after you control for things like IQ, your score on these questions about basically my willingness to persevere with passion toward long-term goals predicts life success. So this is you studying success and something that is not just how smart you are, it's also how much perseverance and passion you have. And so I find that interesting because what you're telling me about your journey is that you didn't know what the long-term goal was, but you were pretty gritty in pursuing this idea that I want to help young people in some way. I want to think about a measure of success for young people. So
if I could administer my own scale to my younger self, right, which of course I couldn't do because it didn't exist but if I could play that magic trick and go back in time, I think I would have gotten a pretty high perseverance score because the perseverance subscale has items like I am a hard worker.
Yes.
I finish whatever I begin, right? And I'm like, yeah, that was me. I mean, I have always been, a very hard worker, right? Like I am not a person who's like, oh, but it's Saturday, right? And I also do have a bias toward completion. Like I hate to quit things, right? And the harder it is, the more I want to stick it out. However, there are other items on the grit scale. As you point out, David, grit isn't just perseverance, it's also passion.
Yes.
Right? Like loving what you do. And the unique thing about grit And this kind of surprised me when I started studying, people like Michael Phelps, people who like become really the best at what they do,
Yeah.
not just swimming, but whatever, is that it's not just their passion is intense, but it's that it is consistent. That year after year and decade after decade, there's this abiding interest. And so if you asked me what my grit scale score would have been, I think I would have gotten a very high perseverance subscore, but I don't think I had developed a consistent direction where I was like, ask me in 10 years, I'm going to still be doing this. Like I wake up and I'm always interested in this. I think that is not just true of me, because I have collected now, David, lots of data on the
Yes,
grit
I
scale,
know you have. Yes.
right? Including my own students, right, who take it as a tool for self-reflection. And always the perseverance scores on average are higher than the passion scores. I think young people who come to Harvard and are as hardworking as they come know exactly what I mean when I say sometimes you have determination, but you don't yet have direction. Sometimes you have perseverance and you don't yet have passion. And that was true for me. I developed perseverance first.
Yeah. Well, so you definitely work hard and you definitely have perseverance.
I do.
I guess what I'm suggesting is maybe you had passion, you just hadn't articulated it. So you were, and actually I disagree with something you said a second ago where you said, I don't like to quit. Well, you actually quit a lot of things. Like you came into college as a pre-med and you quit that.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
So did you have grit towards being a doctor? Not really by that measure.
Yeah. Okay, well, this gets to like, I hope a point of violent agreement, David, which is like, I have a different prescription for young people than sometimes parents like to hear. I'm like, you know what I want your child, your daughter, your son to do? And they're like, what? They've got like a notebook and a pen sometimes. They're like, what? What? So they can be world class at what they do. And I was like, well, I want them to sample before they specialize.
Yeah, I agree.
And in a way, that's quitting before you persist. So there is this literature that, we do have overlapping professional interests, as you know, because I reached out to you first. I was like, hello, Professor Deming. I would like to talk to you about your paper. And you kindly said yes. So when I look at people who are accomplished and when other scientists look at people accomplished, and you go back to their childhoods, and you go back to adolescence, and you even go back to early adulthood, there's a striking pattern which is surprising, which is that they are very broad samplers. They try something and they quit it. They try something else and they quit it, as opposed to being like volleyball, 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 volleyball. For example, when you look at Olympic athletes, and the U.S. Commission for the Olympics has actually studied this, it's the case that most Olympic athletes, not everyone, but on average, have played more sports, not fewer, than comparable but not as accomplished athletes. And I think that's good advice for young people to maybe reframe, the 2 years you spend at McKinsey or some other job that you then end and then pivot, not as a failure and maybe not as quitting, but as sampling. And research shows, but also my own personal experience. I mean, all those years of tears, life is, for most people, like a process of trial and error.
Yes, so I totally agree with that. We're in
Do you
violent
agree? I think we agree on
I 100% agree, and I wasn't
violent agreement.
But so here's what I'm getting at. So I think that actually the way you define grit and the way it played out in your life is exactly right. So perseverance and passion for long-term goals. But I think what is hard to measure is in a grit scale. You're sort of asking people to have self-awareness of whether they're actually pursuing their long-term goal.
And what
I'm suggesting
stage
is
they are in, right?
Yeah,
Because
you were pursuing a long-term goal. You just didn't know it. The reason I'm asking is I think it's an interesting way to marry something that I think probably some of the detractors of grit would say, which is, well, if you have grit towards something it isn't, like you shouldn't say you want to persevere with passion toward being a McKinsey consultant. Like that's not what it means. It means like you have some broad goal.
It's not because I had a goal of being in psychology. It's just that I wanted to have something. It wasn't that specific goal. I just wanted to have something. And so you're right. In some ways,
I think
should
you
have
had a
scored
goal.
hard. Well,
You just didn't know how to get there. Like you were trying to
but I
accomplish
don't know that I would have said it was like, help kids thrive through psychological
Okay.
science.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like it didn't have that.
But you got a PhD in
specificity.
psychology. You could have studied anything. Why'd you study how to help kids succeed?
Well, when I was 32, I did have some clue. But ask me when I was 31, right? Since we're doing this time travel thing. I don't think at 31 I was like, oh, I'm going to go into psychology, David. I think there were multiple paths.
But didn't it stick because it lined up with your as yet to be articulated long-term goal? That's my contention.
So
it's
I
like
think
you're like, I like this. This
okay,
is my...
I think there's something Harvard could do better, if I
Okay.
might interject
Okay.
my own sort of like, and I think there's something that all higher education can do better.
Yeah.
I think when you are here as an undergraduate, you are like undergraduates who are not here, which is like, you do not know what you are going to do professionally.
Yes.
And yes, there's trial and error, but I do think that we can do a better job of helping people think that through in structured ways,
Yeah.
and maybe instead of just unleashing them at 22, where, by the way, in the absence of any kind of structured career exploration, they just all like apply to consulting. Like it's like wait, did you all really like want to do like is that wow, so many of you are doing management consulting. So I do think that we could do a better job, and what that would look like for me would be
if hypothetically you were advising the dean of a college, for example.
For example, if I had the ear of the dean of the college, like, for example, here's a very easy assignment that I assign as homework in my class when I teach undergraduates. And I teach a class called Grit Lab. And it's not because I want every kid to win the gold medal in the Olympics, but because I think everyone deserves to have passion and perseverance for a goal that they care about. So here's an assignment in my class. I'm like, your homework assignment is to have a conversation with somebody you don't know about their career. We'll call it a curiosity conversation. Look, this is how they work. Here's how to write a cold email. And I was like, by the way, I am not going to accept any excuses for this not being done in 7 days. Like, if you don't think that person's going to say yes, ask 10 people. Like, ask 20, right? Sure like, schedule 3 of them. So, like, do not come to Professor Duckworth. And in that structured setting, they get to talk to an accountant or talk to an OB-GYN or talk to, somebody who started a company. And in that 25 minutes, they learn a lot. And I feel like if we could give undergraduate these structured opportunities that are not just at the very end where you're like, okay, you're graduating, like maybe we could think a little bit about what you want to do. I think it would be helpful.
Helpful in what way? You think it would change people's choices about their careers, or you think it would give them a greater perspective on what other people do? Like, what's the goal?
Yes to both of those things. I think the goal would be that they could not feel like they had not done any of that work, and then like suddenly they're somewhere, like, they're like, okay, now I'm living in New York, and now I have to figure this out entirely on my own. I think the other thing, I've talked a lot to Wendy Kopp, who started Teach for America about this, and have you talked to Wendy about her like passion against like all undergraduates, many of them going into consulting or investment banking? She was like, oh, come on. Like the base rate of young people who really want to be management consultants and investment bankers cannot be the same percentage as the ones who are applying for these jobs. And I agree with Wendy that we can do a better job kind of just, helping young people, even those who are so privileged to be here at Harvard, to like explore the professional world. There's so many jobs that you couldn't even like name when you were 18.
Should we guide the conversation more? You said you ask your students to have a conversation with a professional. Should you make them have a conversation with certain professionals? Are you trying to push them away from some careers and toward others?
I am not on a sort of like, some of my best friends, by the way, are management consultants, David Redlick and investment bankers. I don't think I personally don't want to like, say like, oh, these are the better careers. Like you should be in the nonprofit sector or you should be in government. Like, I do think though that, we're so limited. Like there's so many people that I have studied and it's like, why are you this? Oh, our next door neighbor, he was a surgeon. And so like, and nothing wrong with that. But I think having more understanding of your options, I think that could only be good. Right?
Yes, I agree. No, and I tell students sometimes, and sometimes students will say things like, you should intervene in the comping process, or you should, people have, and students and parents and other people, alumni have views about what Harvard or I guess I should do and I always say like, I think there are a lot of times when I should intervene, but I joke with students. I say I have small government instincts when it comes to student life. Like they're adults. I don't believe in a heavy-handed way. Like who am I to tell them what they should do with their lives? But I do think there are a lot of students who would choose other careers if they knew what was out there.
Right.
Sometimes make choices based on happenstance or whoever recruits them or whatever. And so there is a world that I think we could do. I do think we could do a much better job.
I think
of turning people on to different careers. So.
I mean, like life is path dependent, and in some ways, if you think about the things you care about most. I mean, I said to my own daughter Amanda, who graduated here, I was like, one way to think about life is like how much I love you. I was like, do I love anything as much as I love you? No, Mom, you don't.
That's the right answer.
Yeah, I was like, okay, check. I was like, but it's just this thing. It's like I don't compare you to like other Amandas I could have had, like other children. I don't do any comparison. I just love you in all your particulars. And I feel like if we could have some of that sensitivity or sensibility about these somewhat arbitrary paths? I mean, David, is there something that you could have been other than the dean, other than, I always think of you as an economist, but
Yes.
whatever you are,
Yeah.
public policy / economist. Like, do you think there are counterfactuals where you could be as gratified?
I potentially, but it's hard for me to imagine.
Hard to imagine.
Hard for me to imagine. Like, I think that if I play my life out 100 times, this was the best outcome.
Right.
But also, like, I tell students sometimes, I say, like, a year ago, sitting here today, I did not know I was going to be the dean of Harvard College. So what makes you think you can plan your life out? Like,
Right.
I never knew what
Okay,
was going
so
to
there
happen.
is a David Deming who is here at Harvard, but not the dean.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
There's a
He's
million
probably a pretty
different-
happy David Deming.
Maybe, yeah. Depends on which
Anyway,
day you ask
you
me.
force
Yeah.
yourself to force yourself to imagine the counterfactual. What would you be if you were not an academic?
I almost became a lawyer.
Ah,
actually.
okay.
Yeah, I worked at a, but then I thought, I took the LSAT and everything.
Yeah.
And then I was all set to apply. And then I thought, well, maybe I better go work at a law firm for a year to see if that's what I like. And I did that. And I didn't hate it.
But look,
it
you
was fine.
sampled.
Yeah, I did. I sampled.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't what I thought. Actually, for me, it was that it didn't scratch the creative itch. I didn't realize I had it until
Intellectually, you can now figure out a problem on your own.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I like the idea of creating something from nothing and convincing people to pay attention to something they weren't paying attention to before. And there's a kind of, there's a lot of ways to be creative, but I think that's essential to the creative process. You're speaking something into existence and getting people to pay attention to it. Sometimes it's interpreting things differently, but it's like something new.
Yeah.
And I just realized that was really important to me. And then but I still didn't know I was going to be an academic. And so
what
I had
did you
a
do next?
similar. Well, I went to graduate school. I thought I was going to work in D.C. or be
But
work in a
which
think
graduate
tank.
school?
I went to
Public
Berkeley.
policy.
Yeah, I went to Berkeley. That's where I met my wife. So very similar story.
It's good to meet your
Yeah,
spouse in graduate school.
flew far away to live somewhere else, and then we met, and then I worked with a bunch of faculty at the Goldman School of Public Policy. It's a very small school, and they said, hey, I'd done some research assistant work for them, and they said, hey, you're pretty good at this. Like, maybe you should apply for a PhD. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I should. So I did. And I was going to do the Presidential Management Fellowship if I didn't get into it's a like a fast track program to work in the federal bureaucracy. So I was going to be like work at the Department of Education or something.
Yeah.
And then I got into Harvard's PhD program and Princeton. And I actually quite liked Princeton, but my wife is from the area and did not want to live in. She didn't want to go back there at that point in her life. No, wasn't.
Oh, she's like literally from Princeton.
No, she's from the New York, New Jersey area.
Okay, yeah.
And a lot of her family was in there, and she just wasn't ready to go back, and so we settled on Boston. That was it for me. So lots of serendipity.
Right. And some path dependence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying
most people have stories like that. Like, our stories are not unusual.
Right.
Yeah.
I just think, like, if you can I think this young generation, which, by the way, Harvard students today are part of Gen Z, as you well know as a dean, and Gen Z.
I can't keep the new generations apart. I just
Alpha
know that I'm not
comes
in them.
next.
That's all I know.
You're definitely not in them, although you're very hip and on social media and doing all those cool things. But Gen Z is the least happy generation in recorded history. But I do think that one thing that might help, I think this is a very self-reflective generation. There's a lot of comparison because of social media and technology. You can see everybody's lives and they look so great. I do think that may not be the healthiest thing for us, right? To always be looking at all the different roads not taken and like, wow, look at that road. That road looks amazing and it's not my road. And I just don't know. I think sometimes that we get too much in our heads.
I agree with that. I would say that there's a kind of appropriate amount of self-reflection in life that's very important. So you need a little bit to think, what mistakes did I make? What can I learn from? But then to not beat yourself up about something that already happened.
A little bit.
A little
like
bit, but not too much. Yeah.
A little, but not too
Yes,
much.
yes.
Because you're going to ruin
Yes.
it.
Reflect, don't ruminate.
Yes, that's good.
So I
You
think
can make
that's a
t-shirt
thing
for
that, I think that's a thing that we all learn in our own ways. Can I ask you a little bit more about grit, and then I want to ask you about your new book?
Yes, please.
Okay, so here's something I've always been interested in about grit. Can it be taught? And if it can be taught, is it more like a mindset, by which I would think of means like, is it a switch you can flip on and off? Or is it like...
now I think about things this way.
Yeah, like growth mindset or something. Like, if I think about the fact that I can change, then I can change. Or is it more like a muscle that has to be built through repeated practice?
I'd prefer to say like grit can be learned than grit can be taught. Because
Yeah.
grit can be taught sounds like, very kind of like straightforward, formulaic. I do think grit can be learned.
Yeah.
Maybe as somebody who also studies the development of human skills,
Yeah.
You would agree with me that, if there's one thing about Homo sapiens, it's like we are the animal that is born to learn.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You can learn a forehand and a backhand. You can learn how to lead a team. You can learn how to, do so many things. And so if passion and perseverance is a quality that you want to have, then you, of course, would want to ask the next question, which is like, well, how does one learn that,
Yeah.
right? I think there are elements that are basically on-off switches like mindsets. So the research on growth mindset, some of it done here, a lot of it done
Yeah.
at Stanford, would say, okay, if you think about human nature as fundamentally fixed, that's a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
And that mindset will not encourage you to persevere
Yeah.
when you screw up. If you think about human nature as fundamentally malleable, as designed for growth, then when you screw up, when you get a bad grade, when you don't get a fellowship or whatever, like you will have a resilience. And so like, oh, I have a fixed mindset. I guess I should read the book Mindset and like try to develop a growth mindset. So that's
Yeah.
one way.
Yeah.
But I think more and more that what we become is a function of who we're with.
Yeah.
And for example, when you come to Harvard, I think it changes you.
Yeah.
And I know there are debates about the value of
Yeah.
a college education or whether it matters to go to Harvard versus not Harvard. Certainly you can take an economic lens and usually, my outside reading of the modern literature, including recent studies, are like, yeah, it matters.
Yeah.
It actually does matter.
They don't tell you why. I mean, these are some.
They
some
don't
of my
tell
own
you
studies.
why.
They tell you it does, but not why.
But something I think if I can, surmise how you and Raj Chetty and others have written about teams and about I think we are very influenced by the people around us in ways that it's very hard to appreciate consciously.
Yes.
But when you're with a lot of people who drink smoothies, at some point you're going to start drinking smoothies. It's like when people say me and my friend, and like you're around enough people who say that, instead of saying my friend and I, you start saying me and my friend.
Yeah.
Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know, but it's human nature. Aristotle said we are social animals, and
Yes.
Aristotle was right.
Yes.
So I think college shapes you. I think every college has a culture. Yes, Harvard's culture may have shifted since I went here, but Harvard 2026 has a culture. And when you come here and you live here and you breathe here and you eat here and you work here and you sleep here, it will shape you. So if you want to be gritty, one easy prescription is in your local environment, who are the people that you know who are more passionate and persevering, hang out with them more. Like go where they are and you will become like they are.
So this is the osmosis theory of behavior.
It is rhythm osmosis, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll call it the Deming osmosis principle.
I think we're going to call it's situated. It's the subject of your new book, yes?
It is the situation.
Yes.
Yeah, it is the subject of my book. It's
That
the
is more
title of my... Do you like this title, by the way?
Yeah.
Do you think it's cool?
I think it's too late to change, but I do like it.
It's definitely too late to change, but I
like it.
I wrote a book, and you're very kind to ask about it, and I didn't know what to call it. So I did what a social scientist does, which is I did a survey of readers.
Yeah.
So I gave them a forced choice. I was like, should I call my new book Situated?
Yeah.
Or B, should I call my book Great Situations?
Situated is better.
Is it?
Yes.
And why do you say that?
Because because it has a slightly ambiguous meaning in a way that makes people interested.
You're intrigued.
Yes.
You're like, because
Great situations is like
you're
very descriptive,
Yeah, you're like, too much. Okay, well, there was a very clear age trend. And as somebody
Really?
who's also a social scientist, oh my gosh, David, this data are beautiful. I collect the data, like 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And I don't even get data like this in my actual express. So the older you are, the more you like great situations.
Oh.
And the younger that
So I'm
you
coding
are,
as young. Okay, I like that even
young
better.
at heart,
All right,
David.
good.
And when my publisher was like, I think I like it, I was like, yeah, because you're old. I was like, here are the data. And they're like, data. I'm like, data.
Yeah.
So anyway, I won.
There was something about the what I've read about the book, and that intrigued me. There's
Which
a
can't
sentence
be
in
that
there.
much since I haven't
Yes, I haven't read the
I haven't
book.
published it yet. I'll send it to you.
But I think knowing your research and knowing I have a sense of maybe some of the things you might say.
Yeah.
And one thing that I thought was interesting was, I'm not going to say it was you, maybe it was you that wrote this. It said, you increasingly, tell me if this is wrong, you increasingly think of grit as necessary but not sufficient.
I 100% believe that grit is necessary but not
So
sufficient.
tell me what that means. Necessary but not sufficient is like an academic term. So so
Is it? It's so great though. Necessary but not
it's a great
sufficient.
turn of phrase, so we
Maybe
say it a lot.
could-
But
maybe we can make that go
Yeah.
viral. So I think grit is necessary. So to be clear, I recently reread Grit and I'm like, yep. I mean, I
you're like,
agree.
still believe it.
I'm like, yep, still believe it. People completely overrate innate
Yeah.
talent. When my dad was raising me, he was like, oh, you're no genius. I mean, he was thinking about my IQ score. He was thinking about my SAT score. He was thinking like, how smart is she? But he wasn't saying like, how hard is she willing to work?
Yeah.
Like how long is she going to stay in the game? And I think he
Geniuses are made,
underrated-
not born.
Totally, right? I mean, anybody who knows anything about how a beautiful movie is made or about how a beautiful piece of music is, I'm like, oh my gosh, so much grit. So I believe in that.
Yes.
And I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
I don't think it's sufficient. So I think you can be, one of my very good friends is Bridget Terry Long,
Yes.
who, of course, is a,
course I know Bridget
wonderful
very well.
academic
Yes.
here, a wonderful economist,
Friend,
and,
yeah.
former dean of the ed school here. And, she said growing up that she was always taught to work hard, right? But one of the
Yeah.
things that she learned as she grew up and became an economist who
Yes.
studies all the same things that
Yes.
we do is that there are situations in which hard work pays off.
Yeah.
And there are situations in which hard work doesn't. And I'll give one example from our common interest, and I'm thinking about Bridget being at the Graduate School of Education. I have been in classrooms in America where I'm like, it really doesn't matter how
Yeah.
much passion and perseverance
Yeah.
this 11-year-old boy has.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's teaching him anything. Like, I have been with this child all day watching from the back of the room, and nobody has taught him anything from the first bell to the last bell. There was no math taught. There was no grammar.
Mhm.
There was no science. Like, what happened in those hours? Like, I don't know, a lot of noise, chaos, teachers like making conversation about what they did last weekend.
Yeah.
So when I say that the situation matters, I also think the situation is necessary but not sufficient.
Yeah.
You could have a great situation and not apply yourself. But if we could in this country for once come to the nuanced understanding that both and, I think like understanding that the situation matters is traditionally coded as a liberal view, like, oh, structural opportunities. I think oftentimes like hard work,
Yeah.
merit is coded as a conservative view. I am not a very political person. I'm like just a person. And I'm like, wait, just on logical grounds, like, isn't it both? Like,
Yeah.
doesn't the individual have to bring something to their situation? And doesn't their situation have to pay a return on their
Yeah.
effort? So in some ways, it's blindingly obvious.
Well, it's obvious, but it's I think even one more step than what you said, which is, so one is like, if I'm in a classroom and there's no teaching happening, I can't be a gritty student, I can't learn. But then it also,
Or you can be a gritty student and still
and
not
then I
learn.
still won't
Yeah,
learn.
yeah.
Sorry, yes. But then it also affects my motivation to be gritty the next day. Because if
Yes.
I'm in a situation where there is no winning and there's no payoff to my effort, then it actually affects how much grit I have in the future because there's no return to it. So
So I will reveal that I do I do lean liberal. I do believe in like strong public education and progressive tax policies and so forth. But I want to tell the story of one person. He's the only person I wrote about in both books. Is Cody Coleman. I met
Okay.
Cody. He went to school at MIT, and he sends me this over the transom email. This is now more than 10 years ago.
Okay.
And he's like, hello, I'm Cody Coleman. I'm a senior at MIT. And I watched your TED Talk, and everything you say is my story. And he says, like, in a few words, like, he grew up, he was born in a prison near Trenton, New Jersey, and he lived in total poverty and chaos, and eventually made his way to MIT, not because he's a genius, but because he is really gritty. I email him back. I'm like, hello, Cody Coleman. I would love to talk to you. And I've gotten to know Cody very well over these 10 plus years. And here's something that Cody would say today. And by the way, I should tell you the story. So he did end up going from a school district where nobody majored in math, science, nothing, like no step. Like he was the only kid in his graduating class to go to college and study science. Graduates from MIT with a 4.9 out of 5, works at Google, goes to Stanford to get his PhD. When he graduated from Stanford with his PhD in computer science, Cody Coleman was the third Black recipient of a PhD in computer science in Stanford's history. He was the first in 20 years. After that, he decided he wanted to, or maybe coincident with that, he decided he wanted to found an AI startup.
yeah,
So he has
sounds like a remarkable young man.
he is so great. I
Yeah.
am so like Team Cody. And now he's on like the Forbes shortlist for like, tech founders who are most likely to have a billionaire unicorn startup.
Yeah,
So that's the story, right? But here's what Cody Coleman says. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but these are Cody's own words. He was like, a lot of times people ask me what's special. They think I'm a genius. I assure you I'm not. I'm not stupid, but this is not like some God-given, IQ thing. He says, a lot of times people ask me what I think about like my life and about grit, because people do think of him as very gritty, even if they hadn't read about him. He said, I want you to know how important the situation is. He was like, when I look at my life, I can see these 5-year chapters, right? And at each 5-year chapter, he like vaulted into a better situation, right? From his not so great high school to MIT, right? From MIT to Stanford, right? From Stanford to San Jose, where he's got all this like venture capital support. He was like, at all these 5-year milestones, I switched into a situation that was challenging but incredibly supportive. And that made me more passionate about what I'm doing and more persevering. So I think it's like so deeply
You used an important word there. You say he vaulted, which is an active choice. It's not like he just sat around waiting for the situation to improve. He said, I've got to get out of here and go there.
Okay,
and
so
made it happen.
I created a term for what Cody Coleman did, situational agency.
Okay.
I think when most people think about the situation, they're like, oh, you know, got to change your attitude, David, because you can't change your situation. I'm like, I'm sorry, you can change your situation. You don't like who you're spending time with? Spend time with other people. Like, you don't like where you're working? Look for another job. Like, you don't like your neighborhood? Move. So I think that Cody Coleman is a paragon of grit. I know Cody Coleman is a paragon of situational agency.
I see. That's interesting. So here's a practical question for people who want to be well situated. So sometimes it's good to be a big fish in a small pond, and sometimes it's good to be a small fish in a big pond. So what would you tell people who are weighing a choice like this?
I do think that for some students, it's like they end up being in a very big pond called Harvard, right? And when they were in high school, they were the biggest fish in a smaller pond, right? And that is very hard. And I had that experience. I remember in my fall semester here as a freshman, you know, just looking at my rooming group, I'm like, okay, you fly private planes across the country. Like, you won the math Olympiad. You're like, I am just some kid from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Like, I had a reaction to that, which I think was ultimately very healthy. But my reaction of suddenly being a very small fish in a very big pond and not the shiniest fish.
Although to say that might have been your perception, but there might have been other people who
maybe other people are looking at me and were like, oh, that kid from Cherry Hill, New Jersey is really like, making it. But my reaction was like, to hell with it. Like, I'm just going to be me. Like, I was just like, whatevs. I mean, I think there was a moment in time where I was like, well, here I am. Like, here I am. I am the fish I am. Like, whatever. So I stopped comparing, like, you know, how big I was relative to the other fish.
Do you think that's something about you? I mean, there are personality types that do well with one or the other, or like because there are a lot of people making decisions like this. Like, if you start a company and you're in, you know, a town in Ohio where you're the main fish, it's like, or do you want to move to Silicon Valley and try to, or like go to Harvard versus staying at a state school? Like,
well, I know it's cheating, but you're the dean. I mean, you see this all the time, right? Like, you know what I mean when like the kids come here and they're like, oh my God, right? Like, what do you see as like, what's your answer to your own question? Then I promise to say something.
My answer is that we have instincts about what we should do that we need to listen to most of the time, and that most of the time you should make the choice that you feel is right, even if it feels risky, because it's not just the outcome, it's how you feel about the choice you made in retrospect that determines whether you make the most of an opportunity. So I tell people, never be afraid. And, you know, if you think you should probably do it, but you're not sure,
you probably should do it.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I say you never know.
We're not talking about mountain climbing or other risky behavior. We're talking about professional.
I tell students, it sounds cliche, but I tell them to listen to the inner voice. Because I think people are afraid to, and they don't always. Sometimes if you are not listening to it, you don't even know it's there.
Maybe especially at Harvard, right? Because you don't want to screw it up, right? Now that you finally won, as you put it, right? Like, you don't want to screw it up.
Exactly.
But I think that
But it's funny because it should be the opposite, right? So like, having a degree from Harvard is the ultimate second chance ticket. So like, if anybody should be risky, it's
right,
our
because it's sort of like, no, they did this failed startup, but they went to Harvard. So like, they can't be a loser. They have to be risk taking and like wonderful. Yeah, I think that one piece of advice would be, and I think that like being on social media and sort of like seeing everybody's great life, including like purposeful lives, right? Like, is not a great frame. I mean, instead of being like, oh, how big is the pond? And like, how am I relative to the other fish? It's like, you know, really, as we both know, being older than undergraduates, it's like that just stops being a relevant question. Like, you know, you just are what you are, and you know, like it's like my pond is not even your pond. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you're not really comparing all the time.
Right.
You know,
you're saying that, like, I think for students when they apply to college, it's a status competition where there are winners and losers, but actually in life there's many lanes.
I mean, I really want I really want them to come to the 25th reunion. Like, if you could just walk around and hear how people are relating to each other, not in this rank ordering way. I mean, really, like, and I have asked other people who've gone to their 25th reunions at Harvard, and they're like, oh my gosh, it was so great. Like, you're finally just a person, and you've gotten beyond. I mean, who cares if you were Phi Beta Kappa? Guess what? Nobody cares if you were Phi Beta Kappa. Like, it can be everything to you when you are or aren't awarded. But, like, I don't care. You don't care.
Yeah.
Your next door neighbor doesn't care. Your kids don't care. So I do think that perspective is helpful because you stop caring about the pond and your fish size relative, and you just want to, do something.
Yeah. Okay, so Angela, I have a last question for you. So you've given me a lot of advice, actually, about what Harvard should do. Yeah, about or at least thoughts on how you think.
Happy to work on it with you, buddy.
Yeah, no, we should. So here's my question. So as you probably know, we are approaching the 250th birthday of the country.
Well, Philadelphia, so saying, because I'm a Philly girl, and big celebrations.
Philly, like Harvard, Harvard, both deeply intertwined with the history of this country. Harvard College had eight Harvard College graduates signed the Declaration of Independence.
Did not know that.
Yes,
that's a fun fact.
Yes, and so given that we're approaching the 250th birthday, I have to ask, given all you know of Harvard, you came here, you sent one of your daughters here. Do you think Harvard's a force for good in the world? And how could it be better?
I unequivocally think that Harvard is a force for good in the world. And I told you I'm not very political. And by the way, that is an understatement. I'm a deeply ignorant human. I'm like, what? What happened? Where's that war? Is that a country? Like, who? Like, how many Congress? Like, I don't know anything. But I do know something. I have been so proud of Harvard these last years. I want to cheer. I'm like,
you can cheer. It's okay.
It's totally inspiring. I think I've never had more pride in being an alum of this university than I have in recent years. I feel like we stand for science. We stand for knowledge. I personally think when you come here, I believe that the students do feel safe and they feel like they belong. They are idealistic in all the best ways. I think Harvard is one of the things that our founding fathers dreamed of, that we could have an institution that was dedicated to learning and new knowledge and to bring young people from all over, from different backgrounds, and to contribute. So more than ever in my life, go Harvard.
And how can we be better?
How can we be better? Well, there is always that, right? Because if you're going to be gritty, Harvard, you do have to get better. Well, again, I don't have any responsibility like you do, David. I do think that these young people could do even better, maybe on two fronts. We've already talked about how we can help them figure out the post-Harvard step, better. But since we already got it. And the second thing I do worry about is grade inflation. And it's not just Harvard, it's everywhere. But at Harvard, where I got an A-. And same in our institution. And I could show you stats and you'd be like, oh yeah, it's exactly like our stats. I looked at my own grading distribution and I said to my TAs, wait, I can't give out these. Everybody in my class got an A and some got an A-. And they're like, well, we already posted the grades. And I was like, okay, I guess I am now part of the problem. I do think we have macro cultural trends, and Harvard is not immune to them, about young people, about a decreasing tolerance for imperfection, for the messiness of life. So Harvard could do better in trying to create a local culture that I think runs counter to some, I think, unhelpful macro trends influencing young people.
Angela, this is so great. Thank you.
Yay! Awesome. David, I'm really glad you're dean.
Thanks. That's kind of you.
Let me give you a high five.
All right.
Awesome.